Hey everyone. So I am here with Camy. Camy, I have been so excited to have this conversation with you. So if you don't mind, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so again, my name is Camy, and I have had Airbnb properties for about 2 years now.
Okay.
My background is in customer success, so I work for like a tech company, and my job is quite demanding. I probably work, anywhere from usually like 50, 70, sometimes more hours a week, so there's a lot going on there. But I wanted to put my money somewhere where I could also get a return on investment and help make my money work for me. And so I made the jump to get Airbnb properties a couple of years back, and it's been amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. So what was it that of the different kind of like investment options, what kind of drew you to maybe it's short-term rentals for me?
It's a good question. I think I was looking for something that I could still use like my passion and skills in. I think that's like important. And like again, I run a success department for a tech company. So customer service is kind of in my blood. And I always have really liked and enjoyed hospitality as well. Like when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an interior designer. So it just kind of felt like this perfect combination of things that I'm like interested in, already good at, passionate about, and then something that I could leverage to make additional income on top of everything to give a little bit more security. The
Yep.
job market and the tech industry has been really funky the past couple years. There's been a lot of layoffs. And so, especially a couple years back when I like made this decision, I had the realization of like, just working for someone else is not going to ensure my stability. I really kind of need to diversify my income and do it in a way that I can enjoy, taking on extra roles and responsibilities outside of my already chaotic job. But do it in a way where I could feel like I have a little bit more control and ownership over what goes on. So,
Yep.
so far it's been able to accomplish that for me. So I'm very happy.
Yeah. So 2 years into this, how many properties are you currently managing?
Yeah, I manage 3 right now, and I'm working on trying to get more into the new year even. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
So where are your properties located?
Yeah, so I have 2 in Colorado, and then I have 1 in Florida, and the Florida is my newest of the properties. So I've had, um one of the Colorado properties have been like about a year and a half now. The second one has been up for about a year. And then my third Florida property has been up for a couple months, like 2 months now, maybe three. So it's a baby.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
Lot
well.
of
Yeah.
lot of love going into the newest one, I'm sure, getting everything
Yeah.
all in place.
Yeah.
So first property was in Colorado. Did you design that yourself? Did you use our design team? What did that look like?
I used your design team for my first property and
Okay.
then again for my third property. So we did
Okay.
the second one ourselves. We made it very theme based.
Yep.
And there's like pluses and minuses, I'd say, to doing it either way. But the design for the first house was so great. Like, I think what we loved about your design team is the expertise that you put in. It was a really good balance of looking great, but also being functional, and then knowing like the research that you guys do in the market to know what amenities does this house need to have in order to be competitive in the area. Think is very valuable, especially when you're just starting out with properties. There's just so
Sure.
much research that has to go into like making those decisions.
Yep.
Um, and so I found that to be very beneficial. And I was in a season of life for the second one where like we felt like we could take on the like time and energy to do the second one, and we did. And it's like going well. It's fine. But even that one, I'm like, oh, I think I need to add more amenities. Like I might need to like revamp that one a little bit. So I haven't had to, the third property is so new, but likewise, like I think you guys did a great job of like kind of marrying all the important things together with a successful property, which again is like aesthetically pleasing. You want it to look nice. It looks really great in pictures. It kind of lures people in, but then people really enjoy their stay and it's competitive. So people will choose your property over others. Like there's a little bit of a logical standpoint to it. You don't just want to be like, oh, the property looks great. Like there's more to it than
Sure.
that. So starting off, it's been very helpful to like learn that from you guys and even kind of see, okay, well, when I did my own property, what went well about that versus having you guys do it. There's some things that I requested for my third property and was able to partner with you guys even a little bit better because I knew a little bit more of like, hey, I have a preference here. So you
Yep.
guys are really great being able to work with me on that. But for my first property starting out, I didn't know. I'd taken the training and the courses and I have a eye for design and all of those things. But again, there's more to it than that. So I found that your team was like very helpful to help navigate that space.
That's so wonderful to hear. And let's give credit where credit's due. You did a phenomenal job with your second property. It has
Oh,
like a
thank
whole
you.
groovy vibe. It is,
Yes.
you would think that a professional design firm came out, executed that entire design. Like it looks beautiful. So hopefully you have a lot of pride in that because you did an amazing job, even doing the self design. So
Yes.
hearing that like you considered being an interior designer when you're younger makes sense seeing that. Cause I'm like, how does she wear all these hats of being so guest focused, so organized, and then also happen to be a phenomenal designer. So that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I really it is fun. Like my husband in his personal job has been able to kind of circle back and do what he wanted to do when he was a teenager. And that is one of the things with this. I was like, I really did want to be an interior designer. I love designing our home. And like we got this house here a couple years ago. And so being able to like do what we want and make it our own. And so it is really fun. Like I really enjoy the design aspect of the properties, but it's a lot of work.
Sure.
Like, and it's not even just a lot of work from like, do you have a design eye and can you like make it look appealing? It's also a lot of work of knowing what to stock.
Hmm.
Like when you guys do the property, it's literally out of the box. Like
Right.
I put it online, the guests can come stay. Like it's that simple. But when you're doing it yourself, you have to think about all those logistics, the cameras, the locks, the design, the amenities that you have again, but also just the practical, what do you put in an Airbnb to give a good guest experience? And you guys take care of all of the pre-stocking of all of those things, the toilet paper, toothbrushes, like paper towels, soap, like everything that someone's going to need. And I think that part is also really valuable if you're just starting off because you don't
Yeah,
really know all of that complexity yet.
sure. Yeah.
So
Do I need the makeup removing wipes? Do I want the black washcloths? Do I need to have toothbrushes on? All those teeny tiny little things
yes,
along
how
the
many
way.
sets of sheets should I get? It's like, do I get five? Am I good with three? Should I just get two? Like, there's a lot of guesswork that you guys
Sure.
take out of that process. And I do really feel like, especially if someone's signing up for the first time, using your guys' design service, at least to be shown off the like cuff what a successful property should like look like and what should it be stocked with. I was very educated in that process because you did my first property that again I was able to do my second property,
Mhm.
but also I chose to then be able to compare the two to be like, okay, so I do want them to do design for my third property. Also, that I'm in California. It's one thing to get out to Colorado. It's a whole other situation to get out to Florida. So
Yeah.
there's
Coast to
there's
coast.
logic in that too. But again, I was able to kind of make that decision too because I was now familiar with my own business. I
Mhm.
had you guys do it once. I did it once myself. And so it was able to inform me on making a decision. Because again, like just to be transparent, like your design services are going to cost more than me trying to do it myself.
Sure.
Or I could probably hire a designer to do it. Again, Fiverr is something that we can talk about a little bit later, but my husband uses it tremendously for his job. And
Hmm.
so like there's people that have like, oh, we can kind of design and stuff. And like we were able to do a lot of it ourselves, but there's more to it than just that. So even if you were to bring someone else in, do they know how to stock it? Do they know what should be in there? Did they do the research on the amenities? Did you do the research on the amenities? And so there's a lot of like moving pieces there that we had to like plug in ourselves for that second property that
Hmm.
again it just helps me like, okay, for this third property, is it worth me spending in this season of my life? Do I have that time and energy to give? I may actually have the expertise now, even more than the second property, but do I have that time and energy to give? It's all the way out in Florida. And then I know that if I entrust that to you guys, you're going to do a phenomenal job and I don't have to worry about it. if I even try to hire in someone else, I'm gonna have to manage that too. Like, how
Yep.
helpful is that really gonna be? So that's where I kind of ran into it. Is like, unless I do it myself, I'm probably just gonna hire you guys to do it, because
Yep.
even if I try to outsource and figure that out, like it ends up not really being as helpful than knowing like, oh, I'm gonna pay them to do it. It is gonna be a little bit more expensive out of pocket, but I get
Mhm.
to just like literally post my, and you guys actually post for us. I
Sure.
posted my
Yeah.
own, but you guys actually do that. So you literally could just be like, oh, my property's done and it's online. Let me watch my cameras, see when someone's gonna show up, make sure I have cleaners that can go. And it really becomes super easy.
Yeah.
So you guys do a great job.
Oh, that's great to hear. So, 3 properties. Let's talk about time and space. That's obviously a big jump. That is almost its own, stepping into being a bit more responsibility. So, how have you been navigating that with a job that takes 60 hours of your life already?
Yeah, very carefully. No, one of the things that I have had, I luckily have a skill set in is, again, I run a department at a tech company, and so I know the power of scalability. And right
Mhm.
away, I went into, and my husband is really good with this stuff too, but we started to research what software am I going to need to utilize to make
Sure.
this automated. If I can take the guesswork out of a majority of like me, just someone books, automatically they get a welcome message. Oh my gosh, we're so excited you booked. So we were able to build out all of that ahead of time and put my cleaners. I use Turno, I use Guesty, and it's really takes the pain out of managing. I even try to take some of my cleaners off of Turno,
Mhm.
and I have to then manage that myself. I have to, are you there at the property? I'm checking my cameras now, but on Turno, I get a notification. Oh, your person started their clean. Oh, they finished their clean.
Yep.
Any pictures? Great. They logged it in there. So if a guest destroyed something, I have full record of everything. I don't have to like text the person. So we've tried to kind of finagle some of these things because, again, Turno is more expensive.
Mhm.
And that's how it works. If you want automation, you have to pay for the software and you have to utilize the software and to get the benefit of it. And so in my
Exactly.
case, because I am so busy, it is worth that time cost for me because I cannot physically run these properties if I don't have the automation in place.
Sure.
And so I've had to do that. And then the third thing that I just added is it was it was one thing managing the two properties with everything going on. Because most of the time, if a drama was going to happen, it would usually happen on the weekends. And so it's starting to get a
As
little
it does.
challenging because I work during the week and then I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so exhausted from work. And then I have the weekends and then like, oh, property drama is happening now. So now we're doing this. I had one of my basements flood one time and like in between work meetings, I'm like calling people and I'm like, this is crazy. But the
Yeah.
third property completely threw it over the edge for me, where like there
Sure.
always was some sort of drama happening somewhere. Where
Sure.
before with the other two properties, I'm like, sometimes it flares up a little bit for some reason. It happens to always be both properties having issues at the same time, and then I won't hear anything for weeks. And it's just like
Yeah.
my automations are doing their thing. The third
I feel like
property,
it's like the rule of thirds. As soon as you start to like integrate 3 into things, like,
yeah,
yeah, odds are something's going to be going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I just implemented, it kind of forced me in this season to implement hiring someone off of Fiverr to then be a
Okay.
co-host with me. And I audited, I made her looked at her customer samples of correspondence. I think she's in Kenya,
Oh, okay.
somewhere over there, but I got on a Zoom call, did an interview with her, made sure her
Mhm.
communication skills were up to par with what I would expect. I looked at her writing samples, her written correspondence. Obviously, she's probably not gonna be on the phone with anybody, but still want to make sure that her and I can communicate well together.
Sure.
And then I created a bunch of SOPs and things because I think the benefit of taking that progression is I was able to establish with my first two properties, this is how I want to run my business. This is how I want to respond to my customers. I knew what typical issues am I having to respond back to? What kind of typically ends up being when I say property drama, like what does that actually mean? So I define that for her and create spreadsheets for her to like who are all my contacts for my properties. If she needs a handyman, who does she call? Who is
Mhm.
my cleaner? How does she get a hold of them? Giving her access to Turno and Guesty and everything that I need her to have access to, and giving her co-host and my Airbnb profile so she can respond to guests as if she is me. I don't have her responding as someone else. Like she responds as if she's still me. And then we have a group chat in WhatsApp. So we kind of communicate whenever she's like, I don't know what to do. I know now I can just watch. If my WhatsApp goes off, I'm like, uh-oh, I got to deal with something. Because I'm in back-to-back meetings all day at work usually.
Sure.
Seriously. From 9 to 4:30 to 5, sometimes past, and like actually not even an hour lunch break. Like that's how intense my job can be.
Yep.
So drama's happening at my property. I'm like, it would be the equivalent of me having this conversation with you, and then my property's blown up, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I
How
can't
do I
make.
divide my attention in this moment? Yeah.
Yes, and so having her take care of like 95% of the drama, because a lot of it's repetitive, and that's what
Sure.
it is trying to figure out what are the repetitive things that I'm having to do for these properties, and what can I do to set up an automation
Mhm.
or pay someone else. She costs like $500 a month. 500
Wow.
bucks a
Okay.
month to have someone handle my 3 properties while I'm on back-to-back meetings all day and not have to be stressed out while I'm trying to have a date with my husband on the weekend because I haven't like seen him all week because we're so busy. Done. Take my money, please. So it's been a really huge game changer
Yeah.
because last thing I'll say on this is because I want to continue to scale, as I
Mhm.
mentioned, adding that third property, I was like, oh no, like, because my goal is I want to have more properties. I want to be able to have like I love doing this. And I had my first property for a year before I really decided, like, do I actually like this enough to like want to continue to scale? I definitely do. And so I immediately though with that third property was like, oh my God, like I don't think I can scale anymore. I don't think I could add any more properties. Like I'm gonna die. Like there's too much going on.
A good
And so
reflection point, a good, like, pausing in the process to be like, "What does scaling really look like for me?" Right? Because it looks different for every single person, and, like, that yeah.
yes, absolutely. And so for me, that was the breaking point where I'm like,
Yeah.
I couldn't add a fourth property with what I'm
Mhm.
maintaining. And I need to continue to maintain what I'm doing right now, at least for, the foreseeable future.
Sure.
So adding on like I call her my personal assistant, but like added her on there. And now I'm positioned to be like, oh, great, I could totally scale more properties. And so I know you guys have like other like loan options. I got the emails that you guys, so I'm already like looking into those like, okay, so funding for extra properties, like what does this look like? So it's really kind of
2025, Cammy's doing 9 properties, she's got it.
I mean, yes, yes. That's the goal. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I was kind of forced to take that step earlier than I like maybe wanted to.
Sure.
Because again, it's extra cost and it cuts down on my overall profits, which we can talk about later if you want to, but like there's the logistics of how much money does your properties make per month
Mhm.
versus like on a month to month basis versus like when your busy season hits, of course you're raking in the dough. But like
Mhm.
when you're not in the busy season, like what does that look like? Can I even be profitable? Am I going to lose money in a month? Now I have 3 properties going. So adding
Yeah.
a $500 a month cost, like that's kind of just a chunk of money, when it comes
Sure.
to like can my business sustain that extra cost? And so I'm glad I wasn't expecting to have to do that as early as I had to, but I'm really
Mhm.
glad that I was kind of forced to solve that problem now because I'm positioned to continue to scale and I know that it can
Right.
work. So,
Yeah, and does that time of not handling some of the day-to-day drama of things that guests might need and focus that energy or time on the revenue management side of things or, things that can really help that bottom line. So,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. I really think, and maybe a little bit more information than you're looking for, not to like, get on a soapbox here, but I really think that that's thinking like a business owner.
Mhm.
And taking yourself out of like an IC role that they would call it in the tech world. But if you really want to start thinking like a business owner, you start asking those questions is, can I outsource some of these like more repetitive basic tasks so
Yep,
then when I do spend my time and energy on my business, I actually can spend my time on progressing and making sure that I can do revenue generating activities where the day-to-day operations aren't necessarily revenue generating. I could just be caught in the weeds and like, can I progress my business forward at that point?
yep.
harder to do. So I would encourage anyone out there, whether you're thinking about one property, multiple properties, having that mindset, I think it becomes really, really helpful in an industry like this.
100%. Yeah, highest I'm all about highest and best use, right? You
Yeah,
have to stay in that highest and best use because the moment you start getting into the weeds of things where you're like, this isn't the most effective use of my time, especially
yeah.
when you're at your level, right? You can really understand the value of that. So I love to hear it. That's such a good kind of I love the fact that kind of gave you that great pause to recognize what scaling really would look like for you. So that's
Yeah.
exciting to hear. And I think that's such a good resource. So often people think, there's only the Airbnb co-host platform, or there's only hiring a property manager at 25% of your, revenue every single month. So that's using a tool like Fiverr where it is kind of that set monthly fee is such a creative way to kind of get those needs met without it being such a heavy hit to your bottom line. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and she is an expert, like on her resume on Fiverr. She knows how to do Airbnb management. And so I even lucked out when I was like, oh, I didn't have to train her how to use Guesty or Turno or anything. She knows how to use it. And she's even
Yep.
messaging me like, hey, so Price Labs, like, can I help with that? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So, I start to run into be like, oh man, I don't know if
I'm not ready to give
I
up that
don't
baby
know
yet.
willing to like hand that over, but maybe, and she actually has the expertise in all of those things already. So for someone, my husband used to work for a YouTube company and he works
Nice.
in production now, like out here in Los Angeles, but he was very good at like the algorithm of YouTube and how to get people to click on things and like how to navigate like all of the like pricing of that and like the marketing of that. And so he has been wildly helpful to me navigating the whole Price Labs aspect of my business.
Yep.
But if I would have definitely had to lean heavier into figuring that out. And there's tinkering that you have to do with it for sure. But I'm saying that to say there's people on Fiverr that have expertise in that as co-hosts already. So you might not even be alone if you're not married to someone like me who can like
Sure.
help you figure it out. He's like the math guy. And so you can hire someone that actually might even have expertise there and can help you run your business from that
Yeah.
standpoint. So yeah.
Us customer service galleys always end up with the like numbers math guys. It's a good pairing of things.
Yeah. I'm
You get
like,
both skill
I
sets.
don't do numbers. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously at one point you probably were wondering, you knew you kind of wanted to get into short-term rentals, but there's a lot of kind of options out there and a lot of programs out there that, tell you they're your way in. What kind of drew you to this specific program?
Yeah, researching a bunch of different companies online, like your guys' online presence specifically, like we weren't in the Facebook group, but I think we were able to see like your founders like social media
Sure.
and things. Like it actually felt like you were real people and you were running a real business. Like some of the other people were like really sketchy and you
Yeah.
could really tell like who was gonna be calling me and like I don't know. And
Yep.
so your online presence and like which one of the reasons why I'm happy to talk to you today is like the other reviews that people were giving and like you guys clearly were running a business doing this and it is funny with my again mentioning my husband's company, what you guys are doing is very similar to what the company he worked for was doing for YouTube. His
Interesting.
company
Okay.
taught people how to utilize and use YouTube and make revenue off of YouTube channels.
Okay.
So I think that us having that background
Hmm.
also helped us view your company like, oh, totally. This company's doing basically that. But because
Yep.
of your online presence and how you guys were conducting yourselves, it did feel like you were running an actual business doing this. Where a lot
Hmm.
of the other competitors online, I was like, I don't know, this is sketchy. Like it's a lot of money to hand over to someone, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's really what I think you guys did very well and continue to do well.
Yeah. So, what would you say to someone who maybe is a little nervous about making that jump, kind of knowing there's a lot of unknown getting into this short-term rental world? What would you kind of say to them?
I think the reason why I like short-term rentals, and there's obviously a lot of different angles you can take. Do you buy the property? Are you doing arbitrage? Like there's a lot there. But what I personally like about it is a bit of a chunk of money up front. But as long as you invest properly, which you guys are really helpful in trying to help ensure, you know, you can't tell the future exactly, but you're gonna make your money back probably. It's a decent investment. It's just probably a matter of how long it's gonna take.
Yep.
But I feel like when I signed up, like my first property especially is what my biggest property, and it's the cash cow of all of them, you know? And so it's not a get rich quick scheme,
Mhm.
but it is a way that you can get a return on your investment relatively quickly. I think there's a decent, like, low risk level with it from a long-term standpoint that I
Mhm.
felt, like, good about, and then when we're talking about trying to buy Airbnbs, like, yeah, you can get different funding and different things, so hopefully I'm not, like, deterring people away from that, but what I liked about arbitrage, because I had to consider with my 2nd property, my 3rd property, am I gonna just buy some? Do I wanna
Mhm.
keep doing arbitrage? Because 'Cause you're
Sure.
limited in the locations that you know, arbitrage is allowed and there's some legality with that and there's some hoops to jump through. But what I personally like about arbitrage is like I'm not married to that property necessarily. So as long as I can keep it running for a couple years, I feel like I'm not probably going to lose money off of it. And if I can run it well, I have rarely had a month where I was ever in the red, and if I was in the red, it was because something weird happened, like a pool filter broke literally this month. Right now I'm talking about is exactly
Oh,
what's happening. $1,200 pool filter, and then that also may not be your owner of your that house might have been more than happy to put the money down on that, and you could have made different decisions than I made. But I'm looking at my business from a yearly revenue standpoint. I'm not
yep.
looking at it from a month to month necessarily.
Mhm.
Um, and so I like that aspect where I feel like I can from a relatively low chunk of money. I mean, hopefully it's okay if I, you know, give some dollars, but my rough estimate may be around $40,000 to start up a property,
Okay.
give or take, depending on the
Yep.
size. And so that's not that hard to make back on a short-term rental. And especially if you run it for a year, you run it for 2 years, that's not hard to make back. And
Mhm.
usually you're investing because the aspect of the property is you're probably going to make more than that, you know? And so if you can make your money back and then keep it running past then all of that's revenue. All of
Mhm.
a sudden, when it's someone like me trying to be like, can I ever replace my income with this? You start to add up. Okay, once I can get into the black with these businesses, how long could it take? How many properties
Sure.
would it take for me to totally be in the green? And what I've been able to do, I took out funding to launch my first property and then was able to use a little bit of additional funding for my second property, but I've had that first property for a year. I've since paid back the funding off of it and I funded part of the
Okay.
second property and then I started to fund money to launch my third property. And
Yep.
so I'm not taking money from my business yet, personally. I'm rolling the income and the, you know, money that I'm making off it to launch another, then to launch another, to launch another. So there's a
Sure.
lot of different ways you can slice and dice that. But to me, that's relatively low risk. It's a little scary at first. It's a big chunk of money. You can finance that or whatever you want to do, and then you have to be under that pressure to pay it back. But like it's not wild to be able to do. And then if you keep it running long enough, you're in the green.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make, you know, $60,000 a year, again, it's not monthly income we're talking about out of the year because there's slow months and then really big
Seasonality.
months.
Mhm.
But from a year standpoint, when you talk about how much money can I make off of this property in a year, it's if you invest properly, it's a pretty sure way to have a decent return on your investment. So I liked that. I liked
Yep.
that.
No, I love that, and that mindset of always thinking long term, thinking about it's not about this week, this month, but what is that long term revenue and what is that game plan, right? How do I love hearing kind of being able to use existing revenues to invest back into yourself and into this business that you are working to grow, right? So come a year from now, come 2 years from now, what does that even look like? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Amazing. Awesome, Camy. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I was so excited just seeing kind of your property, seeing the growth, seeing how much you're continuing to scale, continuing to grow your business. It's exciting. And it's awesome having people like you in our community to kind of learn from and bring different perspectives to what it looks like to be a short term rental operator.
Yes, and again, like, I'm so grateful for you guys, I'm grateful for this program. I didn't mention it before, but one of the other things I loved is I wanted to get education
Mhm.
as I was also, because I want this to be my business. I can't just hire other people to, like, know how to do the business for me, and so the
Sure.
combination of partnership, but also education that you guys give in this process, I think is unrivaled in this space. So that's why I really appreciate you guys, and I've continued to use you for additional properties. I'm gonna continue to use you for my other properties that I'm launching, so I'm excited.
I love it. Cannot wait to see what next year brings for you. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Of course.